Okay, if I got the Italian, that was a bit of an introduction, wasn't it? So I consider the introduction done. And good evening, everybody. Buonasera.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. So I think we'll begin this evening with some meditation, meditation on the breath. So if you could just indicate to me how many people are familiar with this kind of meditation on the breath. Can I have a hand? Oh, everybody pretty much. Oh, that's great. Okay, very good. So if you'd like to just close your eyes then and go to the breath. Become aware of the breath, the ordinary breath of the body. Just being aware of the body, aware of the breath, just the ordinary breath. What I encourage first of all this evening is to just simply contemplate what's happening here. Just breathing process, it's a natural process of the body. So what you're observing as you watch the breathing is a natural process of nature. First of all, to notice that this process carries on its own. We don't have to do it. The body will breathe without us doing anything. We can just allow it to breathe. We can just watch this process just like the breeze in the trees, watching the breath coming in and out. So just being aware first of all of the air element, being aware of the air coming in and out of the body. We can enhance this sense of the body being part of nature by noticing other elements present in our experience. The earth element, the solidity of the body, the hard parts of the elbows, say, or the knees, are the very hard parts of the body. Belly, very soft part of the body, watery part. The heat element, the warmth of the body. Becoming aware of the breath at the nose tip, then just behind the nose tip is the area of the mouth. Here we can find all the elements of the body very clearly. There's the hardness of the teeth, the watery saliva, the air element is the cavity of the mouth, and the warmth of the mouth. If you imagine this just like a tropical pool, warm water, the teeth like stones in the water, try and get a natural picture of that sensation. There we can see the body like this, and the mind would go very peaceful and calm. Find this elemental sense of the body just for the small area, first of all, and then can you feel the whole body like that? Breathing in and out of the whole body. So this is how we begin, becoming aware of the body, the physicality of the body, in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is how we begin. And becoming aware of the whole body, then we're also opening up a kind of field of awareness. So opening up from a small focus to a big area of awareness by being aware of the whole body. And then within this open field of awareness, then our thoughts and feelings can arise and cease. Having both this physical perspective or context, and then in addition this open awareness, then we have a cool and open field for the thoughts and feelings to arise and cease within. And then we see both content of our minds, what's arising, but also the dynamics, where things are arising, how they move, how they behave in space. The whole idea here is to open up a space in which we get an integrated experience of mind and body together, both things together. We're going to remain aware of the body and the breath, no matter what thoughts and feelings arise. So one way we can describe this is like taking refuge in reality, taking refuge in the reality of the body and the space within it which it's sitting as the thoughts and feelings arise and cease. This is how we build up the four foundations of mindfulness and gain a full picture of what's happening in our body and mind. So I'll leave you with that for a few minutes and then I'll say some more, so 5 minutes or so. So far we've been looking at what it's like to just observe, passively observe. Now let's see what it's like to intervene in this process. First of all, with the body, it's very simply taking a long breath, a long deep breath. This is like joining in with the process of nature, isn't it? Consciously joining in. So we always have this option, don't we? We can either just observe or we can join in with the process. So we can find the long breath very energizing, often bringing energy into the body. Really a bit like enhancing the process of nature, a bit like a gardener who's enhancing nature with their work. So this is our relationship with the body, isn't it, with nature? Is this kind of relationship where we can either just watch and observe or we can join in and enhance nature. So when we just passively observe, often this is the way to get this sense of a natural phenomenon. And in Buddhism, it's important to maintain this as we intervene. We realize that we're intervening with a process over which we don't have any ultimate control. We can't make it grow, we can't make it do what we want, but we can intervene and we can enhance it. So two extremes in terms of our relationship with the body or with the world is one of either just passively watching or trying to control on the other hand, these two extremes. And in Buddhism, and our practice goes down in the middle between these two. The Buddha uses the word bhavana, or cultivation of mind, as a description. So this the image of gardening is a very helpful one. So just as if we're growing a plant and we want to provide the water and the sunshine and so on to help it grow, then in order to make the mind peaceful, healthy, then we provide good conditions in our own minds and hearts, and kindness and patience and benevolence, in order for the mind to grow in a good direction, grow well and in a good direction. Notice not that we're controlling the body or mind, we're training, taming the mind in these kinds of ways. I notice you see that our relationship to the mind just the same as the relationship to the body. that again, we have an automatic process, a process of nature going on, associative mind, going, things arising and ceasing in a very natural way. At any moment, we have the opportunity just to watch this process unfolding, or we can intervene with a skillful thought or skillful attention to the process. So offer that for your contemplation, this meditation. I'll meditate a few more minutes before we go on to some short talk and a discussion. So so there we have then a very brief introduction to Four Foundations of Mindfulness, development of awareness of the body first, and then opening up this awareness so that thought and feeling can arise and cease within a spacious awareness. And then I believe so most of the people here, you have a bit of experience or background in karuna therapy, mindfulness of feeling and relationship through Mora seals. And some of you have some interest in the craniosacral area Franklin seals. So I was asking Martinella at the beginning of this session whether these two different kinds of therapy come together and where they come together. Interested to know what she would say. So for me, there's two come together when you see the significance of the space element in this whole picture. So having practiced Tai Chi, Qi Kung for many years, then in this practice you can be using the breath to to open up and form a field, a spacious field of awareness using the breath. And then you find that this space has a particular quality to it, or it seems like there's some kind of energy there or quality to this. So in Buddhism, this is given quite a lot of significance. This we would see as samadhi, or the phenomenon of the concentrated mind, when the mind becomes concentrated, noticing space. Brightness arises as noticing space. This brightness, space can be moved around the body. This is opening up a channel, is the way we would see this. And so there's a free flow of thought and feeling, but also being able to affect the thought and feeling by the nature of the field in which they're arising. So the nature of that field is very important, the quality of that space or that emptiness. So to open a loving space with metta, kindness, sort of loving brightness, then we see how the thoughts and feelings can be transformed by that kind of open, bright space, which is also opening our awareness to a wider sphere, so which can include other people. Here we all are in this big space. So often when we start off with a practice, a meditation practice, what we're most aware of is thought and feeling. So what we need to pay attention to is the body, the physical context, natural context, and the space in which this all arises, open space and the purity of the mind, the empty mind. Then we have the whole picture. When you have the whole picture, then often things become clear without us needing to do anything more than just observe and take in the picture. So there's a lot of emphasis in Buddhism and this phase of passive awareness, this first phase where we're not intervening, we're just trying to build the picture, first of all. And there are all kinds of ways in which we can intervene, skillful means that we can use within that field of awareness, different kinds of therapy or different kinds of intervention. And we'll be able to see very clearly what we're doing and what's happening. And always bearing in mind this relationship we have with the things of nature that is not a controlling one. It's the anatta teaching of Buddhism, that we're not in control of nature. We are custodians of nature in many ways. We need to be obedient, humble, in tune with nature. So our attention is a very open, listening attention. So with the movements of Tai Chi then, or Qigong, then the moving of the limbs, so moving the hand, extending the awareness beyond the body, opening the mind into space. If you're familiar with Tai Chi, or the Qigong, holding the ball, holding a ball of awareness in front of you, these movements, a very physical way of opening up our minds. Placing one hand either side of the head and being aware of both hands, the way we can open up our attention. So for those of you interested, I gave a workshop of this nature to the Santaloka group recently, a video which we will be finding during this session. We'll put a link up to that. It's translated into Italian, as it's given in Auster Valley. So I think I may go back to talking, but I think what I'd like to do now is to open up to questions, because I've not met you before, so I don't know you or what your interests are, or what your how experienced you are. So if I could have a few questions, that would help steer me, I think. I lived in Italy for 2.5 years. I really appreciated the openness of Italians to asking questions, at least once they got to know me a little bit.
So the first part of the question from Vincenzo is on when we practice on the emptiness of the mind. should we keep the practice on the emptiness of the mind? Should we will stay on the emptiness of the mind, insisting a bit, or we should move to another type of meditation? This is the first part of the question. Okay, so the last part of the question is that Vincenzo is a bit confused because he doesn't know when he practices on the emptiness of the mind, he doesn't feel the sensation caused by the breathing. And so his question is, should I stay on the sensation of the emptiness of the mind, or should I go back to the breathing, sensation of the breathing, of the practice of the breathing?
Okay, yeah, I get the question. Well, what I was encouraging in the guided meditation was to be aware of the emptiness that includes everything. So the emptiness that is including the body and the thought and the feeling, a big emptiness. But it can be that when you become aware of the emptiness or space of the mind, then that can become very pleasant and interesting thing to put your attention on, that aspect. And so certain people will be drawn to that. Because there'll be a kind of brightness there or a pleasant feeling that they'll feel drawn to. And the advice, if that's the case, is to stay with the breath. And so that it's like you're breathing that space in and out, and that brightness in and out of the body. So rather than the mind getting drawn into just the brightness and this emptiness, if that's what's happening for him, and then to stay with the breath, and then bringing the two together, you find that you're breathing in this emptiness with this space in and out. And sometimes the mind will just absorb into the space, and then there you are in samadhi, and everything disappears. There you are in bright space. That's good result. But you don't look for that. That's something that just happens.
In qualche modo,
until that happens. Am I answering Vincenzo's question? Is that what he's asking?
Vincenzo said that he understood that we should integrate both practice these that goes towards the emptiness of the mind and the one the breathing.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. Just keep with the breath. Is the advice.
Vincenzo is saying that he's practicing Qigong, and he would be very interested in receiving the information on the workshop you mentioned before, Ajahn.
Yeah, so we'll try and find that link for you and put it up on the chat line during this session. The video from Alistair. Yeah.
Can I make a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
So in this period, I have an opposite situation of Vincenzo. I just get lost in my thoughts. So it's very difficult for me to notice that I went somewhere with my mind, you know. And it's very frustrating. And so how should I proceed? Shall I insist in coming back to the breath every time I notice myself traveling somewhere with my mind? Or there is something else I can do?
So in this context, yes, you can just keep coming back to the breath, but sometimes the breath is too subtle an object to serve as a kind of anchor for the mind. So the mind wanders a lot, then there's different techniques, but one of them can be to find a more solid anchor for the mind. So one that I used for many years is the sensation of the tip of my tongue against the roof of my mouth, which is a a very clear sensation. So it's a nice small point, nice sensitive area. And it's somewhere around where the thoughts are, around the head area, and restraining the eyes on the energy of thinking going out into the world. And then to keep returning to that throughout the day, I found very useful. And when it came to the meditation, then that sensation, the awareness of that sensation was stronger and stronger. Any moment I saw my mind wandering through the day, I would just go to that sensation. And there are many other methods in this. It's a very common problem that people getting lost in thinking. Another very useful way of dealing with this is to just get a perspective on thoughts, and just to be able to contemplate thinking. What is it, and what the limitation of it? So you don't get caught by it. It's not your central thing anymore. The reason I say this is because the other culture that I've had a lot to do with is Thai culture. And in Thai culture, they don't raise up thinking as a big thing as we do in Western culture. The culture sees that overall the danger of thinking too much, that you just get lost in it, and this overall attitude towards thinking seems to prevent them from getting lost in it. So I recommend that more and more to people who get lost in thinking, just to try and get perspective on thinking, a different perspective on it. How important is it? It's a good question to ask.
Quanto è importante?
Because we see it as important. How important is it? Or how does it change things? Sometimes, of course, it changes things very much if you find the right one. But what about this thinking that just goes around and around? What's that like? I see the difference between the thinking that just goes around and the conscious thought in the present moment. They're two very different things, or animals. As I got inspired earlier reading your website about poetry, as I'm a bit of I write poetry, paint and write poetry. So it's not that I don't see the importance or the power of a beautiful thought, a thought that has both head and heart. That can be a very powerful vehicle. How does that compare to the thought that just comes up automatically in the mind? I would suggest those are very different things altogether. So seeing that difference can help us not to get distracted by this mind going around and around. I could have said that much more short. I went round and round on that, didn't I?
Sì, è un po' la sintesi, quello che voglio dire è questo, se no rischio di dire un po' di ripetermi.
I also have a question that I can translate afterwards. It's okay? It is about the four satipatthana, and it's connected to the previous question, because I have difficult times with thinking too. If I look at the thoughts, then I get lost immediately, like the previous person that was talking. So I almost decided that I might just stick with the body for the rest of my life, because all the rest is it's quite difficult. And so I would like to have your opinion about this. And the other thing is that I really appreciated your guided meditation about this, the elements, and especially the simile of the mouth as little pool with teeth, with like stones, because I find it very, very poetical and very nice to have this little space that is a summary of all the elements. So just thank you.
Okay, so So yes, some very good points there. That actually, if you ask almost all of the great meditating masters I've talked to in the Thai forest tradition about the body and the other foundations of mindfulness, then they almost all say that the body is by far the easiest, which is why this is a good reason to start there. So there's a very practical reason there to begin with the body. And then the tradition also emphasizes how far it can go just staying with the body, both in the sense that you deepen and deepen your view of the body, to see it more and more clearly, more and more realistically, more and more part of nature, as I described, which has quite a transformative effect on your mind. Also as a kind of anchor and a refuge. So interestingly, this compares very well with modern psychology on PTSD, stress, post-traumatic stress, where mindfulness of the body is developed as a way of anchoring the mind into the present moment. So that when the event, when the memory comes, so that the job of the therapist will be to prompt the memory of the event, the traumatic event in some way or another. And so the idea is that the patient can stay with the body as that memory comes. And then there's two effects to this. One is that the person doesn't re-traumatize, which is a point that Martinella pulled out of the articles that she found. And then the other thing is that there can be a kind of physical release that can happen. So that when somebody has a trauma, then they'll be a kind of shock that persists. Someone freezes into they can mentally freeze, emotionally freeze, because the body will tend to freeze when the trauma happens. There's a kind of shock reaction, so that you can break the shock reaction through staying with the body. The body breaks the shock reaction. Okay. So I don't know where the Karuna Institute is on this, but the person my reference point was a therapist at Amaravati who studied the work of Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger, is the famous book. So he's been practicing at Amaravati for many years and seeing how developing very strong mindfulness of the body could be a key to the whole work with trauma. Then you're able to stay with the body as the memory comes. That's the essential point to remember. And of course, the prompt or the trigger can either be the therapist or it can be within your own mind. So this is a way of using a therapist who can help you to, so you're getting drawn into a story around a particular event. They can help to take you back to the physical aspect of that event, feeling or physical aspect in order to anchor you in the present moment. Or you can do that for yourself, just through your own development of mindfulness of the body. And as I was saying in the guided meditation, this is a bit like you're opening a channel for these things to come through. And they can arise and cease. So I find that a nice graphic description of what happens is awareness opening a channel. And the feelings come up through the channel, and so up and gone. The other thing to see that is very different from is trying to get rid of a feeling of an uncomfortable feeling. This is a kind of a reflex response, isn't it? Nobody wants an uncomfortable feeling, so as soon as an uncomfortable feeling comes up, then there can be the urge to get rid of it. So it's reversing that kind of automatic reaction of trying to grab it and push it away or push it down and open. It's the opposite, isn't it? So you see, I think that the suppressive reaction to an emotion is like this, whereas the practice reaction is like this. Yeah, one of the moments that really sold me on this kind of body practice was when I was doing Qigong one day. So I was doing my Qigong as usual, and I did a certain exercise just as a series of exercises, and all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, I had a very big wave of fear come up through the body. So I got curious and I looked up for the first time this exercise that I was doing. I didn't know the theory really. And what I found is that the exercise I was doing was for the kidney meridian, which is related to fear. So that convinced me. That the fear came up very strongly and then it was gone and I felt so much better.
Okay. Marinella was very she appreciated what she said, what you said about Qigong and this experience of fear, and also the advice about the using the tip of the tongue against the roof, because this is a practice in Kumni.
Okay, I didn't know that actually.
And I never knew that there could be a link between the touch of the tongue against the roof and the mind.
Yes.
I will investigate. I will investigate this. Marinella read in your articles on the site, on Santa Citarama's website, about the lightness and the connection of meditation and art, and she would like to know if you can explore more, say something more about this lightness. And what you said about the fact, about the fact that everything is good news.
Everything can be good news.
Can be good news. She finds this very interesting. I would like you to explore.
That reality is good news. So the view that we can have is not, when we get the full view, we see things clearly, then it's good news. So this is something that we can have faith in, that this is the case, and that when things fully reveal themselves, then it's good news. It's good news in a particular kind of way, because suffering ends. And so it's a particular kind of happiness that arises. It's the happiness that arises with suffering ceasing. So it's not so much the happiness that arises from seeking happiness, it's the happiness that arises from seeing in a new way and the suffering ceasing. So that the happiness of the end of suffering is, in Buddhism, seen as far greater than the happiness of seeking happiness. And the difference all hinges on the way we're seeing things. So our perception. So art is a way in which we can be playing with perception. As an artist is doing, is playing with the perception of something. So you can depict something in a certain way and change the perception of an object in order to find freedom from suffering. And then that perception can be quite an individual thing. So, an individual artist can be designing a perception of something that to them ends the suffering around that thing. And the invitation is to create your own picture that does the same for you, to create a new perception around something. So on a very obvious level, you can make a happy picture about something, or you can picture a happy state of mind. There are all kinds of ways in which you can use perception in order to overcome suffering, finding a new way of seeing something. And also, so this is one of the two main vehicles in Buddhism, the kind of vipassana vehicle of changing the way you see something. The other main vehicle is just peace of mind. Samatha vipassana. So are we coming to the end now? Do we need to maybe, I don't know if you have time for one last question, or you want to wind up somehow, Marinella, or how do you do?
We, Marinella, thank you so much for this offering. And she suggests that we can unmute and put the video on so we can all say goodbye and thank you. Maybe it would be very nice and beautiful if you could be in presence and maybe in a retreat, if it's possible for you in Italy.